Not every female character has to be witty, quirky, funny, relatable to us in 2022. Hi, Yen here, and I'm gonna talk about the Persuasion adaptation as well. I was a bit hesitant if I should make this video because there have been many videos released, but I thought since many of those videos are deep dives, really delving into the analysis of what went wrong and what should have been done, and I respect that. I've watched a few of those videos and people are amazing and have described what went wrong and what should have been done well. I just thought that I want to make a chill, relaxed discussion of what I liked in the adaptation and what I didn't like. I could do a deep analysis video, but I just don't feel like it right now, honestly. And since there are so many videos that go into the deep dive, I'll leave a few in description that you can go on. But if you want to hear my opinion, if you want to hear a kind of basic, this was good, this was bad video, stay watching. So let's start by kind of summarizing what Persuasion the story is and why this adaptation has been so controversial within the Jane Austen fan community. It's weird to call it a fan community, but I guess it is. So Persuasion starts off with Anne Elliot, who is 27, 28, and she was engaged at 19, but due to pressures from around her family and acquaintances, she broke that engagement off because Captain Wentworth, he was not rich, and so on. So that's the starting point. It's been 8 years since the engagement, and Anne is still like very upset about it because she loved Wentworth, but she listened to other people instead. In addition, the Elliot family, so Anne is the middle child, there's older sister Elizabeth and younger sister Mary. And Mary has married, and Elizabeth being the oldest, she's kind of the lady of the house. They live with their father, but they are kind of going broke, so they have to rent their fabulous, amazing Kellynch home and move to a smaller place in Bath. That's the starting point. And the character of Anne Elliot, she's very serious, very, very quiet. She's a wallflower, she's the middle child, and basically she's not seen as important as her other sisters, but she's very kind to the point of like doing things she doesn't want to, but because she knows it'll help others, that's why she does them. So she's very serious, very kind, quiet, maybe even a little bit conservative. And I think we need to remember is that in Persuasion, Anne Elliot is not the narrator. Jane Austen writing it is the narrator. So just remember that Anne Elliot is not the narrator of Persuasion. So keep that in mind, that Anne Elliot is presented in Persuasion as a very serious, quiet character because marriage in that era, 1800s, it was everything for women. It was all that they could have. And she had an engagement that was out of love, and she listened to other people's opinions and broke it off, even though that's not what she wanted to do. So that's the setting place for Persuasion, and the story develops as Captain Wentworth returns, and like the dynamic, how they can't really talk to each other because of their past history together. But then, spoiler, at the end, they do get engaged again, against all odds. So when I first heard about Netflix doing an adaptation of Persuasion with Dakota Johnson in playing Anne Elliot, I knew that it was going to be a modern adaptation. Actually, I expected, when I saw the word modern adaptation in an article, I expected it to be set in today's society and just completely modernizing it, no region, no that kind of era at all. Persuasion 2022 adaptation, Netflix adaptation, was directed by Kari Cracknell. When I saw the trailer, I was a bit confused that the modern aspect of it was mostly just like dialogue and then changing of Anne Elliot's character, which I will go into later. It wasn't the kind of modern adaptation that I expected. But nevertheless, I watched it. I actually finished Persuasion, finished translation on Saturday morning, and then right after I started to watch the adaptation. So let's start with what I liked in Persuasion adaptation, because for me personally there were some good sides to it. I thought the cast overall was pretty good to me. I'll talk more about Dakota Johnson and Anne Elliot later on, but beginning, for example, Louisa, I thought she was very well cast. She was this kind of youthful character. She was much kinder in the adaptation than in the books, which I personally thought it was an okay decision. I also thought Captain Wentworth was cast pretty well. I thought the actor really brought in that kind of stiffness of the character and the times in Wentworth. So well done. I don't remember your name, but yes, well done. I thought Anne Elliot's nephews, the kids, were so adorable. I also thought Henry Golding playing Mr. Elliot, Anne Elliot's cousin, I thought he did a really good job in it as well. So overall the cast was good for me. I also liked Lady Russell, how she was portrayed in this movie. I felt like she had the kind of like seriousness to her. I don't know. I liked the cast mostly, and I thought it was a good fit for the movie. Of course, the cinematography was gorgeous, obviously. I feel like when there's a kind of period adaptation or like period drama or so on, the cinematography will always be great, even if the story sucks. I liked that in some of the dialogue we saw Anne Elliot, how she was represented in the novel, but the thing is that dialogue, for example, between Anne Elliot and Wentworth, it was not supposed to be there. I'll talk more about it later. And also whenever there would be like dialogue that maybe showed a glimpse of how Anne Elliot is in the book, it was always then step aside when she would turn to the camera and say something witty. But there were those moments where I was like, yes, thank you for some of this more serious conversation. I liked the way Mr. Elliot was done in this adaptation. In the book, how I kind of felt was that Mr. Elliot was presented as a kind person first, but he always had an agenda, and it was only revealed in the end that he had an agenda to kind of become the main man of the family. But I like that in this adaptation we as a viewer see that he has an agenda and he's a bit snaky, and I like that it was presented from the get-go. I think liking the character when he's annoying is a wrong... Well, it was a good creative decision for me, and I feel like the ending for Mr. Elliot in this adaptation, where he married Mrs. Clay, which I don't think was in the book. If it was, I've misunderstood something. But I thought that was very creative and interesting too. But yeah, overall I thought Mr. Elliot was good in this. Well, as good as in this adaptation can be. Could have been more accurate and so on, but with what we have, I liked it. And if you didn't like it, I'm sorry, but I did. Henry Golding did a good job with what he was given. Before I go into negatives, I do want to emphasize on that, yes, I understand it's an adaptation, it's a retelling. I understand that people who create retellings and adaptations will change things from the original text. And like I understand wanting to kind of modernize a story from the 1800s so that it can be more relatable and understandable to modern audiences, especially to those who don't really read Jane Austen. I do want to acknowledge that you are allowed to take creative freedoms when retelling Jane Austen. However, I think it was too far away from the original story for it to be a retelling, if that makes sense. I would say it wasn't Persuasion, it was Persuasion-inspired Regency era story. You know? So with that, let's get into what I didn't like. I honestly expected to have more things that I liked about the movie, but here we are. So I personally didn't really like the fourth wall breaking style of the film. I understand why it was chosen to kind of bring something new to the story and kind of have Anne Elliot as the narrator, but I don't think it was a good fit for this one. And yeah, overall, Anne Elliot as the character, how she's represented in the book, it was completely changed in the Netflix adaptation. I'm so upset that it was so changed so much, but I'm trying to be polite, but I'm just so upset. Basically, the creators of Persuasion saw the success of Bridgerton and Emma and thought, well, here's a Jane Austen story with a female lead. Obviously, we're gonna make it the same as Bridgerton and Emma. At least that's what I think happened and what a lot of people think happened. But the thing is, not every female character has to be witty, quirky, funny, relatable to us in 2022. Like, not everyone has to be the same. And that was the beauty of Anne Elliot, because she was so different to other female characters. And I think the writers, creators kind of mixed up that the fact that Anne Elliot is not the narrator in Persuasion. It's Jane Austen writing it and being the narrator. And it's Jane Austen writing wittily about Anne Elliot's sisters and father, who were kind of selfish and dramatic and just overall very, very over the top as people, as characters. It was Jane Austen talking about Anne Elliot would never call her sister a narcissist. And I understand taking the kind of like credit that, like, what if Anne Elliot was shared her opinion, but that's not the character. She would never be that mean, because she's not allowed to be that mean ever. Like, even if she side-eyes her sisters and so on, she would never I can't say she would never, since it's like it's been 200 years and it's a adaptation, but yeah, it was out of character. And like, when I read people's opinions on it, I saw someone say that this adaptation made them like Anne Elliot because she was brought more alive and she was more lively. And good for them, good that they liked it, but like, that's not the point of the character. The point of the character is that she is sad and quiet and serious. So yeah, the point is that the characters of Anne's sisters and her father were made into characters and kind of ridiculous, and they are in the story, in the book, they are ridiculous, but Anne would never disrespect them about it. And as I mentioned before, Anne and Wentworth, they talked a lot in this adaptation, but the point of the book is again that they couldn't talk to each other because it was against society's expectations, and with their history even more so frowned upon on, even though people really didn't know that they were engaged, like outside family. So the point is that they don't get to talk. They don't get to talk it out. They don't get to say like, oh, let's be friends. Like, that doesn't happen because they can't. It's too much of a scandal. And that's why it makes them reuniting and Wentworth writing a letter confessing his love to Anne. That's why it makes it so like huge and like emotional. So while I liked some of the dialogue between Wentworth and Anne Elliot, it wasn't supposed to be there. I understand wanting to modernize a female character, but to make it a copy of other characters, to make it modern, that ain't it. The way Anne's despair and sadness was portrayed, it was in this kind of like the way we are shown on TikTok and Instagram and on social media overall. Like, she's drinking wine and she's like, I'm thriving, when I'm actually upset. And like, it wasn't it for me, because the essence of the character was not there. Basically, what they did was they saw Anne Elliot and didn't like what they read. If they read the book, I'm not sure. And they made it into Emma 2.0. The scene where Anne Elliot explains about having an octopus in her dream and then she's the octopus, I didn't get it. I didn't think it was funny. The runtime for the movie was 1 hour and 40 minutes. I think that was too short to kind of delve into the complexity of Persuasion. I feel like before I even started, I was like, okay, I have 2 hours to watch this. Wait, it's under 2 hours. What's that? And I think that's also kind of what impacted the storytelling, the short time. So it was very simplified, very rushed to fit the 1 hour 40 minutes. But that's a minor detail. As for Dakota Johnson as Anne Elliot, I mean, if it had been more true to the original story, I would have been okay with it. Dakota Johnson is like a celebrity crush of mine. I haven't seen her movies, but she's like very pretty to me. So I was excited about her being Anne Elliot, but then since they kind of completely changed the character, I think she would have been good as Anne Elliot if it was respectful of the original material more. This is another minor detail, but it has to do with the modernization of the text. It bothered me that they referred to each other with their first names. That Anne Elliot called Captain Wentworth Frederick, and then Mr. Elliot would call Anne Elliot Anne and not Miss Elliot. Minor detail, but something that I noticed. Like, why are you so disrespectful? Always with adaptations and anything, we have to consider the audience. Who is this movie meant for? And obviously, it's not meant for die-hard Jane Austen fans. And I've seen many videos reflect on that. It's meant for those who want the Regency era aesthetic, but the modern dialogue and all that. So for viewers of Bridgerton, people who liked Emma was a well-made adaptation. And it respected the original material and modernized it a little bit. This was kind of like Netflix being like, okay, that did well. What can we do with this one then? So that's the audience. It's not people who have read Jane Austen multiple times and studied her and know ins and outs of it. It's someone who wants to casually watch a fun, romantic comedy about Regency era. As I said before, it's not really Persuasion, it's Persuasion inspired, and I feel like that the titles should have reflected on that maybe more, not just have Persuasion. If a person watched Persuasion, this adaptation, and liked it, and then goes to read the original text, they might be a bit surprised that Anne Elliot is not this light-hearted, quirky, fun girly, but someone who's quite depressed. But will they go read it? I don't know. I don't think so. To die-hard Persuasion lovers, this movie is not for you. It's not for us. And it's okay. Is it okay? I think it's okay, but you might not think so, and that's fine. As for my opinion personally, I don't think it was awfully bad, but I'm not like dying to watch it again like I was with Emma. If I think of the list of my favorite adaptations of Jane Austen books, it would be pretty low on the list. I think my biggest issue with it was how much they changed Anne Elliot, and I understand modern adaptation, retelling, yada yada yada, but still, it was too far from the original text. It was okay if you looked aside everything that they changed. It's okay, and as for Anne Elliot's adorable nephews, like, that's already enough of a reason to watch it. But would I recommend it? I don't know. I hope my rambly casual discussion about Jane Austen's Persuasion Netflix adaptation wasn't too bad. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos about books and pop culture overall, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and comment what you thought of the adaptation, please. And I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!